All right, what is going on, people? It is good to have you back for another edition of Unfiltered. This one officially go down as episode 291 in your scorecard. You could jump on board 24/7, 365, and get on board the Unfiltered Revolution. It is easy. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. You can go to the artist formerly known as Twitter, X, if you will, at Casey Stern. Jump up into the bio, and there you get all the information for our YouTube channel where you could view all the content, the interviews, the conversations, the guests, the rants, and more. And we're now live on Instagram at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. You can get exclusive content there as well. It is good to have you here. Short little ditty, but sweet, and maybe not so much because I got to get into now. We had the booing, we got the Lindor situation, and now we got David Bednar, and we've got the Pittsburgh Pirates and pandemonium about when to boo. Is it right? Is it wrong? Who's soft? What's tough? And all of that. And I want to give you my unfiltered take. But first, I got to take you here, and that is the fact that we're presented by our good friends at BetOnline. BetOnline, your number one source for all your sports betting needs. They got all the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, basketball, boxing, golf, and more. They continue to be the fastest and easiest way to get all your wagers. Live casino and card games, they're all available right now, right from your phone. So get over the website, order your mobile device, and sign up today. Get in on all the action, but remember to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It'll get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It is BetOnline where the game starts as we get started here. And that is with what happened last night as I do this here on a Wednesday afternoon. The Pirates have opened 9-3. They probably have no business being 9-3. They may not be good enough to have that be sustainable this year. They opened, 20-8 last year, and it wasn't sustainable then. They've got young kids that are growing, but they're playing hard. They're playing competitive baseball, and they're off to a great start. Pirate fans should be thrilled. And we know it probably would be a little bit of a better start if the one guy you consider you trusted more than any, their all-star the last couple of years, David Bednar, had opened up the way we're used to seeing him, but he has struggled out of the gate. So after a walk and a couple of hit batters, and all of a sudden the Tigers coming back and storming back in what was seemingly an easy save opportunity for him. Here come the Pittsburgh Pirate fan base booing him out of the building. Rowdy Tellez afterwards, if you haven't seen it, this went viral. He stepped into the middle of an interview basically in the clubhouse and said, quote, "This is the pride of Pittsburgh." To everybody, we don't do that here. What happened today is, I think, unacceptable. We as a group in Pittsburgh have got to be better. He's an all-star for a reason, and we've got to do better. You got to give Tellez a lot of credit, obviously, for backing up his teammate, and I'm sure that meant a lot to David Bednar, who seemed to be, covering up some emotion from that when he was having the conversation. But here's the thing I got to say to people, and listen closely. Baseball players and athletes, they're tough enough. I don't want to hear that you can't boo your own players. What are you, idiots? People can boo their own players. Players have gotten soft. Athletes have gotten soft because of the money they make. They've gotten soft. No, they're not soft. Because of the money they make and the profile and the spotlight that they're in, they are sitting there being chastised in this world of social media more than they ever have. And in baseball, you fail, especially at the plate, more so than even pitchers, all the freaking time. You got to be tough to deal with that all the freaking time, whether fans who they don't know personally in their own building or some other building, or on the internet in mom's basement, hiding out or yelling at them or not. They are tough enough, I promise you. But it's not about whether or not they're tough enough to handle, whether it's in a smaller market like Pittsburgh, at least for baseball here. We're not talking about the Steelers. Or if we're talking about a situation like they're playing in New York with Lindor, it is not about whether or not they can handle it. It's about how dumb it is to do it. This guy was an all-star the last couple of years. He's been as good a representative and as good as anybody on your damn team. And for this franchise, to which, by the way, and it's not your fault if you're a fan, the ownership and on down the line seemingly has led you to the slaughter year after year, not doing anything to push you over the edge and get you into competition at a high level. Been pretenders, not contenders. But here's a guy who's been an all-star representing you in all the right ways, and he's a hometown kid, and he grew up there. And the last couple of years, he's been filthy and brilliant for you. Now, if the guy is loafing, he doesn't do well, right? because he doesn't care. I get it. That's one thing. Guy mouths off in the media about the fan base and says you suck. That's another thing. When a guy who's clearly pitching and, as he said and depicted yesterday after the game, can't find the plate, and clearly that's what's being assessed unless you're an idiot or a moron in the stands, when you sit there and watch the fact that he's hitting and walking batters left and right, when that guy's out there struggling and he's been your dude and it's the beginning in the first week or two of the season, can you forget me, do yourselves a favor if you want him to succeed and can kind of hang in there with him? I mean, how fickle are you? You think once he's doing well, he's going to care about your applause? Now, he's not going to say this to you, but I will. Athletes aren't going to say this to you, but I will. I've talked to plenty of former players who have played in New York and in Philadelphia and gotten booed and then had success. And they told me that basically they were numb to it and went silent to them, in one ear, out the other, because they never forgot what none of us would have forgotten. And that's the fact that when they were down and when they were struggling and when they weren't doing well, nobody gave a crap and everybody was all over them. The idea that we got to, in New York, just to shift gears for a second, we got to all tell everyone, like when in the stadiums where it drives me nuts and it's 3-2 and 2 outs, and we got to remind somebody to stand up or remind somebody to applause. I mean, what the hell is that? We got to remind people to stand up. I think we should create, let's put together a standing ovation for Francisco Lindor. Why aren't you cheering the guy anyway? Let me ask you a question. How was he last year? How many more shortstops can you name that were better than him in Major League Baseball a year ago? No matter what the hell he's getting paid, and you're not paying him or his contract morons because you're paying for parking. That's not how that works out. 1 + 1 isn't 7. Did he not do enough for you a year ago? Oh, so he's hitting 091. And I hear you see people tweeting, oh, he's hitting 077. I'm not talking about people trolling the Mets. I'm talking about Met fans trolling themselves, looking like idiots. Because the guy a week and a half in a season is off to a terrible start. I hate to tell you, people, the baseball season is long. You know how many years in a row Paul Goldschmidt in April was terrible and came out of the year, at the end of the year, in the top 3 or 4 in MVP? Go look it up. And he's only one name that comes to mind, and it's happened to tons of them. But when in baseball you get off to a bad start and you're David Bednar in the first week and a half, or you're Francisco Lindor in the first week and a half, and it's not in the middle of August, and it's not sitting there when you're doing your fantasy football drafts and you don't care because it's after the deadline and now you're waiting for the postseason, or your team's not in the postseason, or your fantasy team is terrible, or whatever, you don't even notice that they stink. But guess what? They all go through it. Unless you're Mookie Betts or Mike Trout or name 3 or 4 others, it's not going to happen. You don't go bell to bell without hiccups. That's what happens. It happens to teams. It happens to players. It happens to lineups. It happens to bullpens. That's the way this sport is. This is not the NFL. We're not playing 17 weeks. You're playing every damn day practically outside of 18 days off over a 6-month span. It's 162 games, and you're not going to be great all the time. And when it happens at the beginning of the season, it's going to look terrible. But the idea that when you see a guy struggling, and clearly we're talking about a pitcher who doesn't have it, right? And is trying to find it on the mound and find his command. And the guy's had 2 all-star appearances, and you're the Pirates and you're booing him? Are you out of your minds? I'm not saying he's the equivalent of Sidney Crosby on your baseball team, but you got to be kidding me. It's dumb. It's not that you can't. You can. It's your right. Of course you can. And you think I'm soft for saying this? Fine. You think players are soft because they don't think it's right? That's fine too. But you'd be wrong in both cases because, trust me, athletes are tough enough. Beyond dealing with you, they're there with their lives and their careers and all of what they are there for, with building their careers and their finances for their families and everything else in tow, and then dealing with the failure and what if I fail for my team, and what if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, and what if I don't do what I'm being paid to do, and what if I'm in a contract year, or what if I get injured, all of that. And they're dealing with all that every day and doing it in the public eye. They're tough enough, I promise you. But the idea that we're going to sit there and we're booing this dude out of the building, it's dumb. It's not about whether or not it's tough. It's not about whether or not they're soft. It's about whether or not it's dumb, and it is certifiably, gloriously dumb. Now, what would be smart would be to get us on Instagram. Unfiltered with Casey Stern, or on the YouTube channel at Unfiltered with Casey Stern, or Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, courtesy of the Believe Network, presented by our good friends at Bet Online.